I had just buried my husband when the HOA came for my dog. I'm not talking about a warning. Not a fine. Not a knock at the door. They took her. Sasha. My 4-year-old golden retriever, trained as an emotional support dog. The only thing keeping me sane in a house that felt colder every single day. And the worst part? They didn't even knock. It was a Wednesday. I had gone to the grocery store, just 20 minutes away. When I got back, Sasha's leash was missing from the front porch. Her water bowl was tipped over. My heart dropped. I checked the backyard, the garage, the neighbor's yard. Nothing. I called her name until my throat burned. Sasha. Sasha girl. Nothing. Then I saw the envelope. A printed letter taped to my front door. Violation notice number 1428, unauthorized breed and behavior concern, pet confiscated for immediate safety of the community. They didn't call me. They didn't email me. They took my dog like they were seizing a piece of furniture. I sat on the porch in shock for a full hour. I wasn't crying. Not yet. I was frozen, trying to understand how someone could just walk into my life and rip out the only thing left that made me feel human. The HOA president, of course, was behind it. Meredith Caldwell. Picture a woman with bleach blonde hair, always wearing pastel sweaters, who greets you with a smile you know isn't real. She had been on me about Sasha from day one. Your dog's too large for the neighborhood guidelines. She barks too much during the day. She jumps on children. All of it was nonsense. Sasha was gentle, obedient, and had never hurt a soul. But Meredith didn't care. She didn't like pets. And she didn't like me. 2 days later, I showed up at the HOA office with a copy of Sasha's ESA certificate, vet records, and a voice that shook with rage. The receptionist, a college-aged intern with zero power, said Meredith wasn't in. Convenient. I left the papers on her desk and said 6 words I hadn't planned to say. If my dog isn't returned, I'm going to sue. That night, Meredith called me directly. First time ever. Mrs. Preston, we've reviewed your case. The dog poses a liability, and unfortunately, your certification is not sufficient. She is being held at a contracted shelter pending permanent relocation. Permanent relocation. They were going to give Sasha away. Now, here's what they didn't know. My late husband, Daniel, had spent 20 years as a civil rights attorney. He taught me everything about paper trails, abuse of power, and how bullies crumble under legal pressure. So I went to work. I called my husband's old friend, Angela Harper, now a partner at a firm downtown. When I told her what happened, she didn't even hesitate. We're going after them, and we're going loud. Step 1, we gathered every document. My HOA contract. Their pet guidelines. Sasha's adoption papers. Emotional support animal, ESA, registration. A letter from my therapist. A character reference from my neighbor who was a retired police officer. Step 2, Angela filed a temporary restraining order against the HOA, forcing them to halt Sasha's relocation until the court hearing. Step 3, we subpoenaed their internal communications. And that's when we found the smoking gun. 1 email. 1 sentence. We need to set an example. If we allow widows like her to keep bending rules, the whole street will turn into a zoo. Meredith Caldwell, HOA president. That was the moment it stopped being about Sasha. Now, it was about every person this woman had stepped on. The elderly couple who got fined for painting their shutters blue. The immigrant family who had to remove a small garden because it wasn't visually consistent. The veteran who couldn't fly his flag past 6 feet high. I started knocking on doors. Quietly. People were angry. They had been bullied too. But none of them fought back. Until now. The court date was set. But Meredith wasn't done. 3 days before the hearing, I got another notice. This time. Non-compliance fine, $2,700, legal retaliation and harassment of HOA board. That was it. I walked down the street, pulled out my phone, and hit record. I walked right up to the next HOA board meeting. The room was full. People from the neighborhood had heard what was happening. I could feel eyes following me as I walked up to the podium. I looked Meredith straight in the eye and held up her printed email. "You're not taking my dog. You're not taking my money. And starting Monday, you're not taking anyone else's rights either." Silence. Then someone in the back started clapping. Then more. And more. I walked out with the crowd behind me. 2 nights before court, a white SUV parked outside my house. The same one Meredith drives. At 1 a.m., someone smashed my front window with a brick. No note. No camera footage. But I knew. They were scared. Good. Because they should be. Court day arrives. Angela walks in with 3 folders. I walk in with 3 neighbors as witnesses. And Meredith? She walks in with a smirk and a secret weapon. A lawyer with the HOA's full backing. What none of us knew was what that lawyer was about to reveal in court. The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence that feels calm, the kind that stretches, that chokes, like everyone is holding their breath and doesn't know why yet. Meredith sat 2 tables over, smug in her pastel blue blazer, legs crossed like she was about to attend a brunch, not a legal hearing. Next to her was a tall, gray-haired man in a suit too expensive for a neighborhood HOA lawyer. Angela leaned over to me and whispered, "That's Brad Keller. He's not HOA counsel. He's corporate." Someone's scared. I didn't say a word. I just looked at the empty leash I had wrapped around my wrist like a bracelet. The judge, Honorable Teresa Miller, looked through the case file with sharp, curious eyes. "Mrs. Preston, this is your dog we're referring to?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor. Her name is Sasha." "And you're claiming unlawful seizure by the HOA?" "Yes, ma'am. With no due notice, no warrant, and no communication. They entered my property and took her without consent." The judge looked toward the defense table. "Mr. Keller, your response?" He stood up, voice as calm as his suit was expensive. "Your Honor, the HOA was acting within the guidelines of the Harmony Ridge Association agreement, signed by all residents, including Mrs. Preston. Her dog was found to be in violation of behavioral standards and breed guidelines. We took protective custody to prevent any liability to other residents." He paused. Then added the dagger. "There have been complaints about aggression. That was their weapon. Lie. Bend a story just enough so that a dog becomes dangerous. A widow becomes unstable. And they look like they're protecting the neighborhood." Angela stood. "Your Honor, we have documentation showing Sasha is a certified emotional support animal. No breed restriction exists in the HOA's original documents. And no written warnings were ever issued before seizure." She walked to the evidence table. "We also have internal emails from HOA President Caldwell describing the seizure as a way to set an example, clearly not a safety issue, but a personal vendetta." She handed the printed email to the judge. And suddenly, the room wasn't silent anymore. People in the back, neighbors, friends, even people I didn't know, started whispering, shifting, reacting. The judge read it, slowly. Then looked up. "Mrs. Caldwell, would you like to explain this email?" Meredith stood, finally rattled. "That was taken out of context. The resident has been antagonistic for months. Recording our meetings. Insulting board members. Spreading rumors." Angela cut in. "So just to confirm, you retaliated against a grieving widow for exercising her legal rights?" "Objection," argumentative, Keller snapped. "Sustained," said the judge, but her eyes never left Meredith. "Please stick to facts." Then came the witness testimonies. Mr. Alvarez, a retired police officer who lived 3 houses down, testified first. That dog's never barked at me once. She's gentle. The only time she barked was when Meredith stepped onto the lawn, and even then she stayed behind the fence. Then came Lila, the 9-year-old girl from next door. She stood on a little stool, clutching a photo she had drawn of Sasha with hearts all around it. She licked my face every time I came over. She's a good girl. The judge smiled softly and thanked her. And then it was my turn. I stood. Hands shaking. Voice trembling. Your Honor. I lost my husband to cancer last year. Sasha was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. She's not just a dog. She's my family. I held up my wrist with the leash still wrapped around it. They didn't just take a pet. They took away my right to grieve in peace. I sat down. And finally, Meredith stopped smiling. Then Keller stood. Calm. Too calm. He pulled out a manila envelope. Your Honor, we'd like to submit video evidence from a neighborhood security camera showing the dog in question chasing a child down the sidewalk. This goes directly to behavior risk. He inserted a USB. The bailiff connected it. The room went silent again. On screen, Sasha bolts from the yard. A child runs, screaming. Meredith smirked. But then, something happened. Angela stood. Pause the video. The judge nodded. Angela walked to the screen, pointed at the timestamp. Your Honor, this footage was recorded 8 months ago. Sasha escaped because the HOA landscapers left the back gate open, something we documented with a service complaint. She turned. And the child? That's my nephew. He wasn't screaming in fear. He was laughing. They were playing. Angela pulled out her phone and played another video. The same moment. Shot from the front porch. The little boy was laughing, yelling, "Go Sasha, go." The entire courtroom saw it. A setup. A lie. Judge Miller turned to Meredith. You submitted manipulated evidence under the guise of public safety? Keller jumped in. Your Honor, we were unaware of the context. No, Mr. Keller. Sit down. She looked at Meredith again. This was intentional deceit. A personal vendetta. And a clear abuse of authority. Then came the ruling. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Mrs. Preston. The HOA is ordered to return the animal within 24 hours. In addition, damages in the amount of $50,000 are awarded for emotional distress, legal fees, and unlawful seizure of personal property. Furthermore, HOA President Meredith Caldwell is hereby barred from holding any leadership position in the Harmony Ridge Association effective immediately. The gasp in the courtroom was real. And Meredith? She didn't just stop smiling. She got up and walked out. Alone. I cried in the parking lot. And not just because we won. Because as soon as I got home, there she was. Sasha. Tail wagging. Eyes wide. Jumping into my arms like no time had passed. I held her for 15 straight minutes. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about Meredith. I had my girl back. 2 weeks later, a new HOA meeting was held. This time, it was packed. Meredith's chair was empty. The new president? A veteran, who owned a pit bull and wore a shirt that said, "Let people be." Rules were rewritten. Pets were now openly allowed with proper registration. Fines had to go through a review board. And any form of property entry without resident consent? Permanently banned. Neighbors who never spoke before started talking again. Some sent flowers. Some left treats for Sasha at our gate. And the little girl from next door? She made a new sign. Sasha's house, pet her if you're sad. So when people ask me why I took it this far, why I didn't just adopt another dog, or move, or let it go, I tell them this. Because bullies like Meredith count on silence. Because every HOA that abuses power needs to be reminded we're not just signatures on paper, we're people. And because sometimes, you have to fight. Not for revenge. Not for money. But for something as simple, and as sacred, as the right to keep your dog.